What is going on, guys? The Inside Blue Podcast, and today we have Logan and I back at it with another live stream. We did this a while ago. You guys enjoyed it. Today we're talking about the New York Jets, New York Giants, New York Rangers, and New York Yankees. Logan, how are we doing today?
Doing good, doing good. Glad to be back, of course. Last time was so much fun. We had to run it back.
Yeah, 100%. This time we don't have much issues with internet. We got this pretty well. It didn't take that long. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about your New York Jets to start it off. How are the feelings so far in the offseason for you guys and heading into OTAs? And of course, season is probably around 90-ish days until kickoff.
I mean, it's whatever with the Jets at this point, really. You feel like the past 2 years, it was supposed to be the team. You're supposed to want to make, not even just playoff hopefuls. You were like at best, contender hopefuls, maybe like playoffs for at least most people, myself included, felt like that it had to be the time. And after just a horrible season, now it just feels like that you're back to like thinking now. I feel like most Jets fans just thinking, we'll see how many wins we can get, but we're probably going to be, just looking forward to the draft again.
Yeah, I think the problem with the Jets is it feels like they haven't, gotten the right coach and maybe the quarterback too with Aaron Rodgers. That experience was a mess. With the Aaron Glenn hiring, do you think this was the right move? Do you think they should have kept Robert Saleh? What are your thoughts on the Aaron Glenn hiring?
I mean, in general, like I do like the Aaron Glenn hiring. I feel like, part of it is like how many people look forward to trying to be the New York Jets head coach. As a former Jet, I feel like, he wants to be able to win here. With Saleh in general, I don't think they should have fired him during the season last year. I mean, you saw how things like quickly took that nosedive after he got fired. I mean, he was fired at 2-3, and then they finished the year at 5-12. It just wasn't the right decision at all. I mean, I think I would have liked to see like he probably wasn't in range, but seeing like a Pete Carroll go to the Raiders, I would have liked to see them maybe grab a more offensive minded head coach because that's where it feels like that they always struggle. But I'm excited. I'm excited for Glenn. I am. But my my issue is that it just feels like okay, so Robert Saleh was hired after the 49, a young defensive coordinator that brings a lot of energy to his team after having like two successful seasons, then goes and becomes the head coach of the New York Jets. It just feels like that we're repeating the same thing twice now. And I'm look, I if it works out, then thank God. At least like one coach worked out, but kind of feels like we're just repeating ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the exact same situation, but it kind of like feels like with the Rangers that they just keep hiring coach after coach after coach, and they can't nail the one. But in the end, you guys did sign Justin Fields. What are the thoughts on Justin Fields heading to New York after being the Steelers quarterback? Didn't get much playing time because Russell Wilson, who's now the Giants quarterback, got most of the playing time. What are your thoughts on the reunion with Garrett Wilson and Justin Fields?
Out of all the quarterbacks that they could have gotten this offseason, they needed a quarterback that could play day one. They weren't looking for a quarterback in the draft this year, like um Ward wasn't possible. They were a little too high for Dart. Like it didn't and they if they drafted like Dart, they would have had to play him day one, and I don't think he's a day one quarterback. But with Fields, like I feel like, they gave him in terms, I mean, 20 million a year is a lot of money, but in terms of quarterbacks, we know that that's cheap for a starting quarterback in this league. So you try him for a year, you see if he works out. Odds are he doesn't. Now you can like look in free agency to maybe get a stopgap quarterback. And this next quarterback class is supposed to be loaded with talent. You hope to land your franchise there and just build from there. The connection with Garrett, I think, is going to be nice. I feel like that Garrett, he didn't mesh as well with Rodgers as we were hoping he would. And he's such a talented wide receiver in this league, but I just feel like he hasn't found the right connection. With the Jets as a whole, though, like that wide receiver core after Garrett Wilson, it's bad. It's in a real bad spot. And this team, like Brees Hall and Brees Hall and Braylon Allen, good running back duo. the offensive line, I think, can be in the top half of football. They're a talented unit. They've got, Fashanu at the tackle. They just drafted him first round this year. I can never pronounce his name. I'm not even going to try. The guy they drafted to play right tackle, he's going to plug in right away. And the interiors were looking pretty solid. Simpson at left guard's a good run blocker. Joe Tittman's a pretty good center. And Elijah Tucker has shown he can be an elite guard. But it really just feels like that what's going to hold this team back, obviously, is Justin Fields' ceiling. But the fact that besides Garrett, they're doing nothing to help him with that receiver core. They really are. And that to showing like how little they prioritize getting him more weapons kind of showed me that like we're building. We're just building and we're going to be going back to the rebuild. And this isn't supposed to be the year. That's what I'm being told as a fan.
So you mentioned not many weapons. When you guys did acquire Davante Adams, were you shocked with how much he didn't really last here? Or did you kind of expect him to only be, a 1 to 2 year rental?
No, I mean, I expected him to last as long as Rodgers did. I felt like that if the year turned around, Jets made playoffs, Rodgers would still be the quarterback of this team, obviously. Then Devonta would have stayed. When you knew that Rodgers was going to be out, you knew that Adams was also on his way out. Like they came in as a pair. Like they felt like a pair. It didn't feel shocking when he left. I'm not even mad that he left. A player like Devonta Adams should be on a contender like the Rams. And a team like the Jets shouldn't be paying a player like Devonta Adams that much money, especially considering the spot that they're in.
So I guess you probably really regret the whole trade with Davante Adams at the time, or you thought it was the right move when they did acquire Davante Adams to try and kind of make a push after they fired Robert Saleh during the season.
I mean, honestly, like I still think that trading for Adams at the time has to be the move because that's the year like. And I guess, now as we saw and what we could have assumed at the time, jobs were on the line. You had to get it done that year. Former GM Joe Douglas, he was doing everything he could to put together the right team. He wasn't going to take any stops. On paper, that Jets team should have worked, but it just has, one, they're the Jets, and two, firing Saleh creates so much discombobulation with the team, and you have this talented roster, but they're not together. They're not well coached. Hackett wasn't a good coordinator. It really was just like a whole mess. It was one of the most talented Jets teams I had seen in terms of players, individual players, but they just could not come together as a team week after week.
Yeah, and also when they did fire Robert Saleh, that defense significantly took a drop off in my opinion. So
huge drop off.
Yeah, 100%. The draft class this year, you guys drafted the offensive lineman Armand Babu out of Missouri. What'd you think of the first round selection at pick 7?
I mean, honestly, like tackle, I wanted to either go like tackle or receiver, maybe a tight end. I was glad that we grabbed on Mason Taylor later in the draft. They like him. I think tackle. I think at least something on offense had to be the move there. Membu was, I think, on most people's boards, the best tackle available. I mean, honestly, like I don't really know which tackles are going to be better than others. I have no idea. So I saw on most boards, he was at that point at the top. It was between him or I could have also seen like Territory McMillan, but Membu was probably the smarter pick because otherwise they just have that huge hole at right tackle. And now that offensive line feels solidified. So, I do like that, pick to build up the trenches.
Yeah, when I did a lot of mock drafts on the channel, they did have you guys selecting a tackle for the majority of the time. I honestly think there was maybe 1 or 2 drafts that I did that PFF had you guys taking Shedeur. Now with Shedeur, were you surprised how much he dropped off to the 5th round or whatever it was?
Oh yeah, I wasn't high on Shedeur to the point that I didn't think that he should go in the top 5. I thought he was still at least a first round pick, maybe an early second, 5th round. Really, it's like it's these things where as a fan, we can watch so much and we can think that we see so much, but like all these coaches and all these teams then have to know, like in my opinion, they have to know something that he falls to the fifth, that every team passes on him for multiple times. A quarterback projected to go that high, we've never seen a fall like that ever. So, I mean, I guess, what we were thinking just wasn't right because maybe in like these pre-draft interviews and these workouts and the tape, like these coaches, they just didn't see something that they liked, you know?
Yeah, that was the big thing with the Giants, with Shedeur, that Brian Dable basically, quizzed Shedeur and he was not prepared at all. And then when they got into Jackson Dart, they said he was more prepared, and that's why they ultimately went Jackson Dart. But looking at the Jets' projections this season, your schedule, let's go game by game. Let's go
Sure.
game by game of what your Jets prediction is going to be. So you guys got the Steelers to start. Win or loss?
I think that's a loss. I do. I think, Steelers, who even knows what quarterback they're playing, but they're just so much better coached than we are. I can maybe see a sneaky win. Steelers do sometimes take a little bit to get there when the season starts. They either start out super hot or they come back later in the year to make sure that they get to that like 10-win mark that they usually hit. I think that, Tomlin outcoaches Glenn in his first game. I think they win like a low-scoring affair.
You're not worried with Mason Rudolph as the current quarterback for the Steelers?
I mean, I do believe that Rodgers eventually becomes a Steelers quarterback. I don't think they roll in with Rudolph as a starter for the year. I think that this is a team still with – I think as long as you have T.J. Watt, you should be looking to make playoffs. Otherwise, deal him. That is a generational edge rusher, and having him on your team just to do nothing is something that the Cleveland Browns would do, and you're not the Cleveland Browns.
So we start off 0-1 to start the year. Now you guys play the Bills at home.
Loss.
Loss.
Definitely.
So we start 0-2. You guys are away for the next two games. You got the Buccaneers.
I think that's also a loss. I do.
So we are now 0-3. Got the Dolphins on the road, Monday Night Football.
I think that Dolphins game is a loss. I think they split the season series, but I'm gonna say that Dolphins game is gonna be a loss.
So an 0-4 start with Justin Fields. Do you think there's any sort of chance that at the Dallas week that we see a quarterback change, or you think it's Justin Fields for every single game?
I think it's Justin Fields until midseason. I do. I think that they would rock Fields until midseason, see if he works out, see if there's any kinks, because that Dallas week, I think that they grab a win.
Okay. Now, I don't really know the Jets depth chart. Who is your current backup quarterback?
Tyrod Taylor.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So playable option, definitely, but not one that they would, be looking to develop, obviously.
Gotcha. So next one, you guys are home for the Broncos. It looks like that game is in I think it's international.
It's in London. It's in London. Yeah.
So 9:30 start.
I think they lose to Denver. They lost to Denver last year. Team's so well coached. That deep Patrick Tane on the Jets are a team built on one receiver. The Broncos have the best corner in the league. They're not going to be able to really do much offensively.
So it looks like through the first 6 games, you guys are 1-5. Now you got the Panthers at home.
I think that's a win. I think the Panthers are going to be better next year, but I'm going to take in with the fact that it's a home game, that they grab one there. Panthers are still weak defensively, and I do expect the Jets at least to be stronger offensively this year than they were last year. They still have talented players on that defense. Win.
So 2-5. Now you guys are away at Cincinnati.
Loss. Definitely a loss. I think, in that game, we're going to see that first half feel close. And then that second half, I think Cincinnati's going to run away with it.
So you guys are home against the Cleveland Browns.
Win. I don't even want to. With everything the Browns got going on, I totally feel like that the Jets we could get in the season. And right now I have them going 2-6 in that week. Could totally be at the point where, they're like 5-3. It's actually a miraculous year they're having, and they lose to the Browns, and then they finish the year 6-11. I hope that's not the case. I'm going to say that they're 2-6 going into this week, and they just win their third game. Trying to like make sense of the situation.
So we got a Thursday night football game at the Patriots.
I'm going to say that this is the Patriots win. I'm going to say they win on the road.
Okay, so they went on the road. Now you guys are at Baltimore.
Loss.
You guys are now, your next two games are home. You got the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay. Falcons, I'm going to have to say Falcons is a loss. Yeah. Atlanta can be inconsistent year by year, but I can't really see them losing to the Jets. I can't.
So you said you guys were splitting with Miami, so you win against Miami.
Yeah.
So your next game is at Jacksonville.
I'm actually going to say that this Jacksonville game is a loss. I am. I've been going back. I've looked at the schedule, and I was like at first thinking, this is a game they win. But, the more I think about it, like I don't expect the Jaguars to be as bad as they were last year. I expect them maybe not to be a playoff team, but at least be better. I still trust Trevor Lawrence. Brian Thomas is great. I'm going to say that this is a loss for the Jets.
Might be the Travis Hunter legacy game. Next game is at the Saints.
Win.
And then
what even is their quarterback situation?
Yeah, I mean, you might be seeing Tyler Shock as their week 1 starter.
Right.
So you guys are home against the Patriots.
That's a loss.
So did you? I forgot. Did you say you won the first game, or did you guys get swept by New England?
No. I said that we won the first game. I think we split. I think we take earlier in the year, but I think this is a Patriots team that could get better as the year goes on, and we could see them like try to maybe make a late season playoff push with Drake May. I just think he's so talented. I do. I really think he has it.
And then you guys wrap up the season against a probably majority rested Bills team.
I'm gonna say loss just for the fact that if they are, like you said, they could be rested. If they're rested, then please beat the Bills backups. Please say that's a win. Don't be that sad. But if Buffalo needs any sort of win for playoffs, then it's definitely gonna be a loss.
Yeah.
So that go either way.
So not the so you guys finish what 3-14 is that?
I thought I had more than 3 wins on there. That was a little more hopeful.
Let me think. So you guys,
we were 3-6 at the Browns game.
Okay, and then you said you beat the Saints. That was 4.
The Dolphins and the Patriots from there. So 6.
Okay, so 6 wins overall. Not bad.
That sounds right though. This feels like it's frustrating too because they really do have some talented players. I really do feel like that they have some great talented players. So a 6-win season with these talented players should not be what happens. But again, with the Jets, you can't focus on the positives. You gotta focus on the negatives because those are always what makes a season collapse.
Yeah. So who is your we already answered if Rodgers is going to sign with the team. We said the Steelers most likely, if he even plays. I mean, it's crazy how long Rodgers is making the Steelers wait. But my question is, who is your player to watch this season for the New York Jets?
I got a couple answers here. I mean, I think one person that's very interesting to keep an eye on is their 4th-round pick, Arian Smith, who early in OTAs is showing a great impression. A lot of people in the Jets community are very excited about him. But my issue, he looked incredibly athletic player, but the catching is just not there. Back at Georgia, he would just drop these wide open passes. And, I feel like so many times you see that carry over. And that's just it's a little brutal to watch. You need someone to emerge as the wide receiver too. So he's someone to keep an eye on. Mason Taylor is getting tight end 1 reps currently at OTAs. He's also another rookie I think to watch. Maybe could be an option. I know that Fields sometimes does like throwing to that tight end. especially in a world where Garrett's his number one option. That tight end could emerge as number two. On the other side of the ball, just in general, not for a specific player, but this is a team that's going to have Quentin Williams, Jermaine Johnson, and Will McDonald on the defensive line. Jermaine Johnson tore his Achilles in week 2 last year. He had 10 sacks 2 years ago. Will McDonald had 10 sacks last year. They're both playing the edge this year, side by side. I mean, I'm hoping that creates something. Last player I'm going to say is second middle linebacker, Jamin Sherwood, was top in the league in tackles. They just cut C.J. Mosley, so they're hoping that either Sherwood or Quincy Williams really fills that hole. And Quincy was a first-team All-Pro 2 years ago, and Sherwood, I think, was actually, I don't know if he won anything, but very good year from him last year. So hopefully they put it together in that linebacker group.
All right. We've definitely, let's move on to our next team. Talk about the Jets a lot. Let's go right. Staying in football, let's talk about the New York Giants.
All right.
3-14, last in their division. A lot of talk of the draft and who they were going to take. For me, I knew it was going to be Abdul Carter. I think if they took anybody else besides Abdul Carter at that pick, honestly, I was going to be pretty pissed. I know there were some people that said maybe it could be Will Campo, but to me, I think Abdul Carter was the perfect selection for this team. It makes their defense a lot better with Kayvon Thibodeau. Say what you want about Kayvon. Brian Burns, and then you have Abdul Carter as well, and Dexter Lawrence. You can't forget about, in my opinion, I truly do think he is the best defensive tackle in football. But I know that is definitely heavily biased. But, they made a lot of signings. They signed Russell Wilson in the offseason. They signed Jameis Winston. They drafted Jackson Dart with the trade up. They signed Paulson Adebo to be their CB1. They signed Javon Holland. Re-signed Darius Slayton, Greg Van Roten, Chauncey Goldstein, all of those guys. So, I mean, a lot to look forward to this Giants team, in my opinion. The big question is going to be their wide receivers outside of Malik Neighbors, because I know what Malik Neighbors can do with any sort of quarterback. He did it with Tim Boyle. He did it with Daniel Jones. He did it with Drew Lock. He did it with all of those terrible quarterbacks. And he found a way to put up 1,200 yards. So, with Russell Wilson, who still has a pretty decent deep ball in the NFL, in my opinion, I think he could have a good season. But, I didn't think Darius Slayton had the greatest year. I know they did re-sign him. I didn't mind the re-signing. The biggest player that I look in that wide receiver room is Jalen Hyatt. I feel like if you're trading up for a player, you have to make him impactful and play him. I feel like, they're not signing anyone right now. They talked to Gabe Davis on a visit. He's still unsigned. So I look at Jalen Hyatt. I know he's dominating OTAs, but, those are OTAs, and he's done that before. But I need to see more out of Jalen Hyatt this year.
I mean, I agree with you. I think, like I was talking about with the Jets, the Giants need that second option. I think that defensive line is really good. I think, they improved it on their secondary. Although I do question 1 year letting Xavier McKinley walk to just give a similar contract to Javon Holland. But that's another. I think that's the Giants realizing the mistake that they might have made there. But for me personally, I think this is a Giants team that's a year out. I think that, like the Jets, they'll have like a 6-win season. And honestly, it's not even the wide receiver core that makes me so nervous for his team, or Russ is an aging quarterback and Dart needs, time to develop. But it's really that offensive line. I don't know additions that they made to the O-line, if they got anything great. I mean, Evan Neal is turning out to be a bust. It really, these teams are built in those trenches. The defensive line and the offensive line. And the Giants' offensive line not only can be in the better half of football, could easily be top 10. I think Abdul Carter was the best player in the entire draft. He was incredible at Penn State. He's just an athletic beast. I think trading for Dart was the right move. I thought the Giants draft was incredibly successful, one of the biggest winners. But again, Dart's not a day one guy. He needs to develop. He's a gunslinger, and he needs to learn like the ropes of the NFL. But while they have that strong defensive line I was talking about, that offensive line is just so weak that you know, Tyrone Tracy and Cam Scatterbo is going to be nice, but it's not like anything incredibly special to write home about. Malik Neighbors is incredibly talented, but besides him, there's no one really there in the core. And it just feels like that I could see this team being like a very good defensive team, but offensively, I feel like that we're gonna see like as the season goes on, I think they'll break apart because usually teams that have these weaker O lines, they just don't make it into the later season, mostly because of the pressure that they end up, letting up, really.
Yeah, the offensive line, they moved Evan Neal to guard, which I wanted that to happen last year. They waited forever to do that. So Evan Neal at guard could be better because as a right tackle, I mean, we saw all of the clips, all of the memes of Evan Neal, of how bad that second step was. And honestly, even these like it wasn't just Micah Parsons, like of course, elite talent. But like you look at even like going up to like preseason football, like some of these third stringers, just a simple power move, and he's at the quarterback. So I am glad that they did decide to move Evan Neal finally to guard. They did draft Marcus Mabel from Purdue, which I thought was a solid pick. Little shocked with how long he stayed in the draft. I think they got him like the 5th round. I love the Cam Scatterbo pick. But like you said, the offensive line does need to improve significantly. JMS, their center needs to make a big jump. A lot of these players need to have really solid years. Greg Van Roten, I mean, he's a depth piece. He's going to be on the starting offensive line, but he is older. He's on the older side. So, I mean, health could be an issue. But the big thing I did like is that they did address depth to this team in a lot of spots, especially on the defensive line with Chauncey Goldstein from Dallas. So that's where I did like it. The Javon Holland thing, that's a whole nother story. I wanted Xavier McKinney back for a long time, but we know how that happened. Deonte Banks, of course, can improve this year. But, like you said, I mean, right now I did have, when I made my Giants prediction, I did have them at 7 wins. And I think that's if a lot goes right. I think the worst they could honestly finish is like a 4-win team. I don't think they're going to be like that bad because I look at the Saints, like the Saints are probably going to be the worst team in football, in my opinion. And we look at other teams and we see how they are, like the Cleveland Browns and,
Right.
All those teams. So we don't know how they're going to play out. I mean, we've seen some shocking teams. I mean, the Washington Commanders last year, I did not expect them to go into Detroit and put up 40 plus and then, have a game against Philly. And then obviously Philly won that game and went on to win the Super Bowl. But I feel like analysts and people like kind of need to start giving the Giants a little more credit. I know they did get a lot of backlash for letting Saquon go, but in the end, they couldn't keep Saquon. You want Saquon to do well, of course. Unfortunately, he signed with Philadelphia, who at the time was still a super team, and now you add that elite running back with that elite offensive line, and you see what an elite offensive line can truly do to a running back with the talent that Saquon has. But he is the cover athlete of Madden this year. So we'll see, if there's a Madden curse or anything. Last year was CMC. We saw the struggles with CMC and injuries and all of that. But the thing is, like, this team kind of reminds me of Pittsburgh last year. In my like with Russell Wilson, like the offense was middle of the pack. Like their points per game was 20th, or points per play was 20th, or yards per play was 25th. So now with Brian Dable being the offensive guy he is, I do have him at seven wins. We do have a question in the chat. They want to hear it from me. If the Giants have another awful season, should Brian Dable remain the head coach? I'll let you answer this first. They did ask me. I'll let you answer it first, and I'll give my opinion.
I'm sorry. Yeah, what was the question?
The question was, if the Giants have another awful season, should Brian Dable still remain the head coach, and why?
Honestly, I was not saying that I don't like Dable as a head coach, but I was a little surprised that they kept him after this year. I think another bad season. My only reasoning for keeping Dable after this year is that you want Dart to develop under the same head coach that drafted him. That would be the reason that I would give like for keeping Dable. But if you have it like 7 or 8 wins, I could justify keeping Dable. But if you win like 4 or 5 games this year, he's got to go. I mean, like the team. Look, the team's not. Like I said, I don't think the team's in like a playoff position, but I don't think they're like a basement of the NFL team. And I feel on paper, at least on paper, they're better than multiple rosters. They shouldn't be in the basement, despite the fact they're in a tough division. So I feel like that if you have this bad year, like it's time to look at. I think it's time to look at the coach, and I think Dable would have to go.
Yeah, I do have Brian Dable as the number one coach on the hot seat this year, mainly just because of with all that's happened. Now, the good thing is that Brian Dable probably hasn't really lost the locker room. You see what the players do say about Brian Dable. They do like him a lot. They do like the vibe. So, I mean, props to Dable, but obviously we did see at OTAs today that a fight did break out today. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, I do think if they win, for 3 to 4 games, I think he's like definitely gone. I think if they do win six just games, I think you maybe could give him the leash and have him as your last year. But honestly, I mean the head coaching, candidate. I mean, outside of Mike Vrabel, who was really the big guy that if you do fire Brian Dable, who is better out there besides Mike Vrabel?
I mean, like I said, besides Vrabel, uh, like I said with the Jets, I don't know if he was necessarily out there for all teams, but if I had known Pete Carroll was an option, I would have, liked to see him. And I feel like, Pete Carroll has not just in the NFL, but like, I mean, in the NFL with really only with Russ, but at college, he was developing so many quarterbacks. I feel like he'd be perfect for Dart's development. But again, it kind of felt like that Pete Carroll was like a Raiders only hire. It was like with Brady being the owner, like it was either Carroll was going to no teams or he was going to the Raiders. So I'm not going to blame like any other team for not getting him. But
Yeah,
those him and Vrabel really are like the only two options. I think you could have been like, we'll fire Dable to get this guy. But again, Carroll seemed like he wanted to go to Raiders, and I don't think Vrabel wanted to go to another team besides the Patriots. I think he liked that New England had the money, that they have Drake May, that he's a former Patriot. I think it was just too good for him.
yeah. I mean, just the way he talks, to the press and all, it's just such a good fit with Mike Vrabel in New England. And also, I was looking at projections this year. I never mentioned it with the Jets, but right now, I was looking at projections of like win loss and all that. As of now, they have Buffalo at 11.6 wins, New England at 8.2, Miami at 8.1, and the Jets at 6, which was what we mentioned. Are you necessarily shocked with the Patriots having that high of a win total, or?
Honestly, not really. Vrabel is a head coach that has shown that he can get the most out of his players. I mean, this is a Patriots team that I don't really know how talented they are defensively. That's kind of my issue, and maybe Vrabel can get the best out of that. And it's a Patriots team again with maybe not that many like weapons. I mean, the whole thing with Stephon Diggs, they're keeping him, but it's not a great start. Will Campbell though looks like he's going to be a great piece of the line. I think the team again needs. I have to look. I also completely forget their offseason signings this year. But this is a team that Vrabel is going to need to get the most out of his players. But I think he could do that. And Drake May again. I really think that like this is a talented guy. This guy, like, I still think that this is true. Before he got drafted, I saw someone say it would be like if not the size of them exactly. He's a little smaller, but if Josh Allen and Justin Herbert had a baby with that potential, it would be Drake May. And I honestly completely agree. I just think he can move better than you think he can. He can throw on the run. He can throw in the pocket. Like, he's got such a cannon of an arm. Like, this guy really can be something special if New England builds around correctly and puts him in the right situation. And again, I think that that's another team that I think like is a year away, and I could totally see with the right coach that they have Vrabel that they do better than Miami, who's been inconsistent.
Looking at the New York Giants, getting back to them. Um, I really like this draft class. I do. I think I think I'm not gonna say they hit on every pick, but I think they looked at more best player available than draft for need, and that's what Joe Shane needed to do this year. I was sick and tired of him just drafting because we needed a cornerback or we needed that, and then they ended up wouldn't even be good because we just had to draft this guy for need. Did you necessarily need Cam Scatterboot? No, but the pair him with Tyrone Tracy could be pretty fun. I mean, Cam Scatterboot, he's a motor. He's going to run right through you. We saw it at, the Arizona State game against Texas. When you give that guy the rock, he can do a lot with the ball. The Jackson Dart pick, I know a lot of people hated on it, but it's not like, he's starting right away. Like, that's why you signed Russell Wilson and not force Jackson Dart into that situation. So I think I just feel like people just find a way to just hate New York football. And I mean, props to the media because that's what they always do. But the Giants' final record prediction, according to the projections, is just under 6 wins. The playoff percentage is at 12.7, and to win the Super Bowl is at 0.3. And then to lastly end off the Giants segment, Giants are projected at 5.9 wins, Dallas at 7.8. Washington at 9.4, and the Philadelphia Eagles are at 10.8. What are your thoughts on those projections?
Honestly, okay. I do feel like that the Giants should be a little higher. Again, I have them in kind of that 6-win range, maybe 7, maybe like I don't want to say 5. I don't think they get that low. I do think that Dallas is going to be kind of around that. Like I mean, they have them at 7. I think they'll be around the 8-win mark. I think that Washington will be more around that like 10-win season. I think they'll kind of follow like something like the Texans, where Stroud where the Texans were like, oh, good out of nowhere. I mean, granted, they had a deeper playoff run than the Texans did, but then like the next year, you saw them not really take that step we all thought they would after acquiring an elite receiver like Washington did with Debo and the Texans did with Diggs. But Houston still found a way to win a playoff game. Washington could easily find a way to win a playoff game. What surprises me the most there is putting the Eagles at less than 11 wins. This should be at least a 12-win team. I mean, like, yes, they lost some players, but the offense is still the same. The defense, again, lost. They lost some edge rusher. I'm forgetting his name, but a very good edge rusher.
Bryce Huff?
Who actually, not Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff wasn't too great for them last year. He signed with the Patriots. I'm forgetting his name now. Reddick was like 2 years ago. I'm completely forgetting his name, but he signed with the Patriots. Right, they lost him on defense. Darius Slay is no longer an Eagle, but they've been filtering in, rookies, second-year players into the secondary. Another player I'm forgetting, he was drafted out of Toledo. He's playing corner. Cooper DeJean, obviously. They're playing at corner safety. I'm really just forgetting these players' names. I'm like naming random things about them, but just not their names. Anyway, this is a Philly team that should win at least 12 games, unless injuries, barring injuries, of course. If Saquon goes down for 10 weeks, it's going to make the season harder. If Hurts goes down for 10 weeks, season's harder. But, like, if this team stays as healthy as they did last year, there's no reason that they shouldn't win at least 12 games. Like, I think 10.8 is low, in my opinion.
Yeah, I saw a thing on ESPN that, like, they got worse, but, like, how much worse does this team really get? I mean, Jalen Hurts, I think, shocked a lot of people this season, especially that Super Bowl performance against Kansas City. But, yeah, I mean, this Philadelphia team, I mean, I think the craziest take that you could say is that Washington could actually overtake the Eagles this season and win the division just solely because, there hasn't been a repeat NFC East champion since, a while. But to me, I don't see that. I see the Eagles kind of just starting to go on that run. Like Washington, might be knocking on the door, like, hey, we're here. We won 10 games, but Philly's like, oh, we're here, and we won 12. So nice to meet you. And then I think Dallas is no more than an eight win team. Now they did trade for George Pickens. That's cool and all. They do have CeeDee Lamb because, I mean, if they didn't trade for George Pickens, that wide receiver room is very bad. The offensive line, I know pretty sure Zach Martin just retired. So
Yeah.
that offensive line might be a little banged up. I know they drafted Tyler Booker. Some people said it was a significant reach, but we'll see how Tyler Booker plays out of Alabama. Their running back room is always it's always weird now. You don't really know what the running back is going to be for the Dallas Cowboys when they departed with Zeke. But yeah, I mean, I think the Giants unfortunately are going to come in last. I do. I think they haven't beat Dallas on the road since 2016. Dallas has just had their number. When Dak is playing quarterback, he just finds a way. And I think with the Giants, if they do want to try and take a game from all of them, if they even can, but I don't think they do. It's that offense needs to play perfect. They need to play pretty perfect. Now, I think they honestly can, split with the Commanders because the Giants' first game, they lost by, 3. They lost 21-18. They allowed 7 field goals. Washington didn't score a single touchdown. And now you add Abdul Carter to try and contain Jaden Daniels because at the end, Jaden Daniels was just running all over the place. And if you don't have an edge rusher or someone to contain, those speedy, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, all those guys, you're going to get beat and you're going to get, beat really bad. But, I mean, I'm pretty excited for this Giants team in a lot of ways just because of the defensive line, because I think they can do a lot of damage. Now, a lot needs to be done with Shane Bowen. He needs to be a lot better, but I think he can be now. You have an improved secondary. You hope you get a bounce back season out of Deonte Banks, but I think the Giants are being a little underappreciated still because they let go of Saquon. I think that narrative just has to go out of the window, but it never will be because the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
I mean, yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't entirely agree that I think the Giants, I do think, okay, I think they're under a lot of fire with Saquon, and I don't think they deserve it because, in my opinion, just quickly, I always think as an elite running back like Saquon, you can't make a bad offense good, but you can make a good offense great. And that's what Saquon did for the Eagles. They were a good offense in 2023. He makes them a great offense in 2024. But a running back like Saquon can't make a bad offense like the Giants into a good offense. You need to build the team around that. So giving that money to Saquon, it just wouldn't fit with what the team was working with at the time. He just happened to go to the worst possible team. With the Giants going to the season, I do think, though, it's tough in division. I could, like you said, I mean, I could see them playing off against a win against Washington. I think it's unlikely. I could. Dallas has their number. Philly's too good. And when you think about it, those 6 games, you're thinking 1-5, 2-4 at best. I really do think. Again, people love hating on New York football. They do, but we both agreed. I think this is a team at the bottom of the division, and bottom of the division teams, they do normally have 5-6 wins. And I feel like if you're accepting bottom of the division results for a team, you should maybe think 5-6 wins, unless, of course, the team catches fire and finds a way to jump Dallas, and Dallas becomes that bottom of the division team.
Yeah, I mean, we did it for the Jets. Let's do it for the Giants. And I want your opinion because I already made a video on my Giants prediction video. Let's go through the schedule. I want to see your thoughts. Honest, you could give all your truth and everything you got for this schedule. So your first week is on the road at the Commanders.
That's a loss. I couldn't see the Commanders making the NFC Championship and coming out week 1 and losing.
Gotcha. Game 2, another divisional opponent. You're at Dallas.
At Dallas, loss. like you just said, haven't won in Dallas since 2016. I think they keep that going.
Week 3, you're taking on the Kansas City Chiefs at home on Sunday Night Football.
Oh God, that's not a fun start. That's a loss on Sunday Night Football. Oh, they just want that to be publicly shown. Wow, that's not very kind.
Week 4, you're taking on the Chargers at home.
Yeah, loss. I'm saying it's a loss. Chargers are a well coached team. I love Justin Herbert. You know, he in all the hypotheticals, I think he's so great. No, he besides the playoff game, he had a very good year last year. And if they're a regular season team, this is a regular season game. It's a win.
So the Giants start 0-4. Now they take on the Saints on the road.
I'll give them the win against the Saints. I will. I think starting 0-4, they'll feel the pressure for a win. Saints are a perfect team to get that win. Saints are going to be a 3-win team. You know, they get that game.
You go. You are home against the Eagles.
Yeah, it's a loss. They're gonna drop both the Philly this year.
You're at Denver.
You know what? I'm actually gonna say that this is a win. Denver. I feel like that Denver drops games like this. You know, a worse opponent comes into town, and it just seems like that they can't really get things right. And I think that the Giants might be able to get one on them.
Ironically, when I made my schedule prediction, I did have them beating the Broncos as well. I think they're going to take a little bit of a drawback, maybe not significant, but like you said, I think just a team that isn't as good as them. You know, it's a nail biter, game-winning field goal. That's how they lose. You're now at Philly.
That's a loss.
Okay, so far through the first 8 weeks, we are 2-6. Win against the Saints and win against the Broncos. You are on the road against the 49ers. Or sorry, you're home against the 49ers. Home against the 49ers.
All right. I'm gonna say it's a loss, but I think that this is gonna be a closer game than we think. I think the Niners regress this year. They're not talented on both sides of the ball like they used to be. Close game, but loss. And now I think at what, 2-7?
Yeah, they're 2-7 heading into week 10.
Now I say that Dart goes in.
Interesting. You are now on the road at the Bears.
I'm gonna say that in Chicago, Dart gets it's his first career game. He loses. It's tough conditions. I'm gonna say 2-8.
Okay,
but let's see the rest of the schedule.
You are on the you are home. So Jackson Dart's first home game against the Green Bay Packers.
I feel like I'd be insane for saying that they win this one. I don't like. Again, the Packers are a team that sometimes, when you get in this when you get in like this middle chunk of the year, they just drop these games, and you're like, "What are you doing?" And again, I feel like Dart's first home game. This would be perfect time for the Giants to take advantage of that. I'm gonna say surprise win.
Okay, you're at the Lions.
Loss. This is a brutal schedule. This is actually a brutal schedule. This is insane. This is wild what you're telling me, Ben.
Well, we're looking at the hardest schedule in the NFL. So.
Oh God. Oh my God. This is terrible.
You are at the Patriots.
Win.
And after 13 weeks, we have a win against the Patriots, Packers, the Broncos, and the Saints.
Yeah. What, 4-9?
Yeah, so we're 4-9. The Giants finally get a bye week.
Oh my God, they haven't even hit the bye yet. Oh my God.
Finally get a bye week at week 14. And then they are home against the Commanders.
I would say they'll get the win here. Coming off the bye week. I don't know what Washington's bye week is. If it's the same one as the Giants, then this doesn't really work. My logic here doesn't work as well. But if the Commanders' bye week is earlier in the year or in the middle of the year, then, they're more rested than them. Washington could be, slowing down. They drop a divisional game on the road. Win number 5.
Okay, so we're home against J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings.
I'm going to say win. I don't think the Vikings are as good as they were last year. They seem to be like another other year type team. The players are having time to develop. I think they're going to win team in general.
Well, next year I'm going to say this is a win for the Giants.
We are on the road against Pete Carroll and the Raiders.
I'm going to say that this is a loss. This is a very winnable game. This is, but along with the surprise wins I'm giving to the Giants, I think that this winnable game is one that they drop.
And we have a home game against the Dallas Cowboys.
I think at this point, the Giants, I think the Giants lose this one. I think that Dallas is still playing their starters, just trying to get some wins at the end of the year. And I think, Dak plays a solid enough game, probably win number like 7 or 8 for Dallas, loss number 11 for the Giants. That feels right.
Yeah, so it looks like the Giants finished 6-11. Or am I missing a game?
I think 6-11. I think that's.
Yeah. All right. I mean, we're right there pretty much. I had them at 7-10. I'm pretty sure. The only other, I think I had a win against the Bears. I believe I think that's, or it's either that. I got to remember the video. It's either that or I had like an upset victory at week 1. But
okay.
I had them lose. I had them splitting with the Commanders. I forgot how I did it though.
Okay.
But I think I may have had a win against the Bears because I don't know. I think the pass rush and the defense with Caleb Williams, I think that could just cause a ton of turnovers.
No problem.
That's how I look at some of these games. So
I mean, season predictions are so hard because how quickly do things change from week 1 to week 4? So we can never know. I'm counting on this Bears team to be improved, but we could be going into that. They could be going into Chicago, and I could say, yeah, Bears are going to get wrecked here.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the problem is that the Giants haven't had the greatest track record in Chicago lately. So, I mean, that game is, well, week 1's going to tell me a lot about this team because you're playing,
right.
Potential playoff team, assuming all goes right. I mean, Washington should be in the playoffs. I mean, maybe there's a slight regression, like a sophomore slump, like with what CJ Stroud had with Jaden Daniels. But honestly, I don't see that.
But should still be a playoff team.
Yeah, 100%. But I feel like Jaden Daniels isn't really going to have that sophomore slump. But let's talk a little hockey.
All right.
Let's get into the Rangers, and then we'll finish off with the Yanks. So, I mean, we don't really have much to talk about the Rangers except for a disappointing year. From going from the President's Trophy champs, dominating all around, beating up on the teams, and then you go into the playoffs, and then things just go south after the playoffs and losing to the Florida Panthers. The Mike Sullivan signing, once he was made available, I knew 100% the Rangers were going to get him. No matter the amount of money that maybe Boston or other teams were going to offer Mike Sullivan, he was going to come here. But the problem is, like, with this team, like, Mike Sullivan is kind of getting an aging core right now. Like, if you took Mike Sullivan on, like, the 2022 team that made the Eastern Conference Finals, or even last year's team, like, I think we're in a way better situation. Now, granted, Mike Sullivan's an elite coach, and he's taken even some maybe not as good Pittsburgh teams with kind of an aging core to the playoffs. So now, I mean, there are some big names, Chris Kreider, he's been shopped around. Some teams are concerned with his health. And Keandre Miller. What are your thoughts on those two players specifically getting shopped out? And do you see a potential trade in the future with those guys?
I mean, I could see both of them getting traded. Kreider, not as much. I think that Kreider's aging. I don't really know how much value we could get out of him. And he seems like one of those guys that's nearing retirement. And at this point, lifetime Ranger. Like, if you can't really get the value and you can make, if you try to make the money cheaper, like, Kreider should be a lifetime Ranger as is, I mean, the 50-goal season on, the most tip-ins I've ever seen in front of the net was a hell of a season that he had. But Keandre Miller is someone that I think definitely definitely could get shipped. I think are teams out there that would want to take a swing on him just because he's younger, and he has shown flashes, but I'm just a little confused, I guess, with the Rangers' direction. Like they have that aging core like you talked about, but the players are talented. Where do they go with this team?
Yeah, the problem is like, I've looked at their roster. I've stared at the roster. 20 like I feel like this year you shouldn't like necessarily go all in. Like 2026, I mean, you look at some of the free agents, like I mean, Connor McDavid is out there. So say what you want. And maybe I'm a little delusional, but like maybe 2025 ain't the year. But
You
like
don't think Connor McDavid stays as a lifetime Oiler?
well, listen, I mean, if he wins the Stanley Cup, then he's there the next 15 years, whatever it is. But I'm not saying he's going to be a New York Ranger, but I think he's a player that I look at. I think Mika Zibanejad needs to improve. Artemi Panarin has 1 year left on his contract. Does he stay? Do they potentially, move him? So the problem is that Chris Drury kind of rushed the process of this rebuild, in my opinion, and didn't let these young players truly develop. Like, I mean, we see what Capo Caco is doing with Seattle now. You gave him a chance. He's playing, and he's playing at a pretty good level. Lafreniere has shown flashes, but, some Ranger fans just want to ship him out for some reason because, maybe he didn't have the second half that we were hoping for when he did sign that extension. Now, with trades and all of that and signings, it's going to be tough because the Rangers only really have $8-ish million, but I think it goes up to like 10 when the cap goes up. Will Cooley is an RFA, and they have some other players that do need contracts. I don't know. The team, there's so many better teams out there right now. I mean, Florida,
They're
that team,
incredible.
like Brad Marchand is on their third line right now.
One of the best defensive forward groups that like I've ever seen. I mean, I haven't been a hockey fan in a long time, but I can't imagine for forwards defensively, they're unbelievable. Like it really, in my opinion, like it really felt like the entire playoffs. I was just waiting for them to make the cup. The West was a different story. The Florida though, I really like every matchup they had. I was like I was surprised they went to 7 with Toronto, even though Toronto had a great year. I was surprised that they let it get to 7. It really just felt like that Florida was just such a well-built team. Like they just absolute powerhouse.
Well, they just don't stop. Like
No.
when they just don't ever stop. And I mean, last night when they were up 3-1, I'm like, wow. Edmonton's a high-powered offense. So I mean, are they going to come back? And then they end up coming back and tying that game. And then it goes to overtime. And who better than Leon Draisaitl to finish it from Connor McDavid?
No goals in the cup last year for Draisaitl. Gets 2 in the first game.
Yeah, I mean he had 166 seconds into the hockey game. So
yeah,
the problem is that this team, it's weirdly built. Like they'll have Gabriel Perreault coming in. They'll have Brennan Othman.
Yeah.
So, but like this team, like, it's getting up there in age, and their window, it's getting very, very small. Now you have Igor Shesterkin, of course, as your goalie, so he will steal a ton of games for you.
Right. This is still a team that won't be like terrible, but
yeah, 100%. The big thing that I want to look at, well, at least what they should do is really beef up this defensive core and get guys that are like gritty and nasty. I love Zach Jones, but you have Adam Fox as your offensive defenseman weapon. So I need more guys that are, like Ryan Lindgren was a good fit until the end of his Rangers tenure because his turnovers and all that was bad. But the player that Ryan Lindgren is, you need more of those, just more size. This team needs more size. And
they need to get, it feels like that they needed to have more energy. It felt like that, especially in the second half of the year. Like just felt like that the other team always wanted it more. The other team was getting more physical for the puck. They're getting more attempts on net. Like, you were just getting outplayed for 60 minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, say what you want about Jacob Trouba and Barclay Goodrow and their contracts, but I mean, when they were there, the team was
Physical.
the team was pretty vicious, and they just happened to play a Florida team that just had a little bit more and just a few mess ups, and it costed you a series. So,
Right.
But the one thing I do also look at now, Mike Sullivan is not a recycled head coach, right? He has made a statement in Pittsburgh, but looking back at it, you see what Chris Knobloch is doing, with the Edmonton Oilers. He's been a head coach not that long. And he has found a way to get to the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row. Now, granted, he does have the best player on the planet, and he does have Leon Draisaitl.
Didn't he take over last year mid-season, though, too?
Yeah. He's I'm pretty sure, exactly, he's been a head coach for 18 months. So, he took over. Yeah, he took over Jay Woodcroft, who's still out of a job. So, yeah, I mean, he's out of a job. So we'll see, what happens. But I look at when they let Chris Knobloch leave to go to Edmonton, I thought it was a huge mistake. He's a younger guy, and the Rangers hiring all these recycled coaches, Gerard Gallant. David Quinn, ironically, is back with the Rangers staff, if you didn't know. He's an assistant coach to Mike Sullivan's staff. But yeah, nothing really else to talk about the Rangers. They just need to improve. Got to get more grip, more energy. But let's talk about these New York Yankees, man. What are your thoughts so far in the season? Has there been a player that has surprised you? Floor is yours.
Sorry, what'd you say?
So let's talk about the New York Yankees. What are your thoughts on their start? And has there been a player that has surprised you?
So Yankee season, right? I feel like it's been a season of a lot of questions. It hasn't been a bad start. It's been a good start. I mean, the AL East has been weak, so we're at the top. We're towards the top of the American League. I think just behind the Tigers, who are the best team in baseball right now. But come playoff time, I got a lot of questions. And honestly, after that series against the Dodgers, it really didn't help ease anything at all. Some of these questions are, although the lineup is deeper than last year, what is this team without Judge? Like, can this team perform Can this team from 6 through 9 help us in the playoffs, or are we going to rely off the bats of a Paul Goldschmidt, an Aaron Judge, a Stanton when he comes back, even a Ben Rice, or at the start of the year, a Trent Grisham? Like, Volpe has been solid, as of late. He has been getting better, but I don't know if that's going to last. Can this 6 through 9 team really get it done? And for playoff concerns, I have one regular season concern the rest of the way. That's regarding Luke Weaver. But my playoff concern is not Luke Weaver and his performance. The Yankees bullpen without Luke Weaver. I'm going to preface that. That it's not. I don't think Luke Weaver can perform. That would be a ridiculous take. Starting pitcher wise, though, your ace is Fried, who besides the Dodgers game, he still is below a 2 ERA. He still is a top pitcher. He's a Cy Young candidate. Rodon has been very good as of late, but he's inconsistent. He's streaky. This is a team that needs to acquire a starting pitcher at the deadline. Because right now, your 4-man rotation for playoffs is Fried, Rodon, Heel when he comes back, and then a Clark Schmidt or a Ryan Yarbrough. Right? Like, I really like Ryan Yarbrough, but he's more of a bullpen guy. He's not a starting pitcher, and he's not expected to be, really. He goes out there, he goes 5 innings of great ball, but that's not really what you want in the playoffs. You want pitchers that could go at least 6 innings, maybe 6 innings of starter, 3 innings of bullpen is a great way to go in playoffs. I feel like acquiring a starter at the deadline can help that so much. And with the fact, and what really sucks about that question too, is the reminder in my mind that if Cole was not hurt, this wouldn't even be an issue. If Cole wasn't injured, I'd feel so good about this team. That's all I would need is Garrett Cole to be on this team. Because the playoff rotation would be Cole, Freed, Rodon, and Heel. That is dominant. That is, I would feel fantastic about that, especially with how Freed's playing. But you lose arguably the best pitcher in baseball going into the year. You've already let go, not let go, but one of the best hitters on the planet went to another team. So instead, you go for more depth, and now it's paying off because players like Goldschmidt and Rice are playing good. But still, especially if you're at Dodgers series, it really just feels like every year I ask, is this the team? And I just don't feel like it is.
I could see where you're coming from with the lineup issues. Because depth is something that notoriously Brian Cashford never addresses. So when we do have injuries, we're starting to hit the panic button, and we're getting injuries from left and right. Like at first, when Garrett Cole did break the news that he had Tommy John surgery, if they did sign Soto when they wanted to in the middle of the season and talk contract extensions, we probably don't have Max Fried at all. We probably don't. Do we even have the money for even the other guys that we signed too? But for me, my most impressive player has been Carlos Rodon, because he did need to step up a lot. He has pitched phenomenal this year. ERA is phenomenal. Just had a great start against the Cleveland Guardians. Inconsistencies, I can see where you're coming from, because that's at the start, his first 3 starts, I believe, were pretty rough. But after that, he has been very good. Devin Williams has been another talking point. A lot of issues in the 9th inning. His ERA is up to 10 in the 9th inning, but a 2.45 in the 8th inning. Now, when we did record our last live stream, I'm pretty sure we were still talking about Juan Soto and extending him. Looking back at it, do you like Plan B more, or would you have liked to see in the next 15 years of Juan Soto as a New York Yankee?
With how the season has turned out, I think you're right. I think the depth is more important. And I'm not trying to come this and say from a place like, oh, you see how bad Soto's playing at the start of this year. Like, I think it's like he's Juan Soto. He's gonna be, if not this year, at least 3 of the 15 years they have him for contract, he's going to be MVP candidate, one of the best hitters in baseball, one of the best eyes. No doubt in my mind for that. I still think the Mets have like one of the best hitters in the league in Soto. But I think that like with the injury, with the Cole injury especially, like depth was needed for this team. Depth, and with that depth, you get Bellinger. Now we have 4 good playable outfielders, which is nice if someone goes down. You know, Freed. If we didn't have Freed this year, we'd be ruined. We would. Because the inconsistencies I talk with Rodon are more about last year than this year. Like he caught 5. He was good for most of the playoffs, but if you remember last year, he was a very up and down pitcher. That's more the inconsistency I was talking about. But without Freed, I really feel like that this team would be in a bad spot. So Plan B is working out very nicely. But I guess if we don't win a ring under the Judge tenure, part of me I think would wonder like if Soto's hitting in front of him all those years, do we get one? Do we get at least one with Soto and Judge going back to back?
I feel like you do. I feel like you definitely win a ring with Juan Soto and Judge. Ultimately, he did go to the New York Mets. Say what you want about his start. It seems like the Soto shuffle is coming back, but I was a guy that always wanted Juan Soto. When we did make the deal, I loved it, but yeah, I mean, it's obviously sad that he's gone, but something that's in the past. With the starting pitching, I know that you mentioned, is there a guy at the trade deadline? I know the trade deadline isn't like tomorrow, but when the trade deadline does come to that, do you have a guy in mind that you want the Yankees to acquire?
Honestly, not yet. Like I have a few ideas. I mean, the pipe dream that I've been seeing, which unrealistic option. That's why I call it a pipe dream. But if the Rangers keep playing bad, people have thrown out Jacob DeGrom, aging. Yankees trade for him. It would be incredible if they did. I've always loved DeGrom, even when he was a Met. He was DeGrom's peak is one of the best peaks in MLB history, and he's having a good year this year. Um, I'm trying to because really what you gotta look for is struggling teams with good players that they would want to move now because they're aging. And the Grom definitely fits that mold, especially if the Rangers do continue to struggle. I'm trying to think of other teams right now. I can't really. Um, I mean, not like the Rockies have anyone to give. Who would take a player from the
Well, for the
Rockies?
Rockies, the only guy that comes to mind is Jake Bird, the reliever.
Right.
But
Mm,
anyone else really from the Rockies is a no-go. They should have traded Ryan McMahon last year when he was peaking. Now Ryan McMahon has not been good. So bad
right.
management on the Rockies. I mean, there's a few guys. I know the Yankees were not necessarily rumored, but they were they might look at Brandon Lau, second baseman from the Rays, because I can't have DJ LeMahieu or Jorge Vivas or
No.
Peraza starting a game. This is the
You saw
New York.
Goldschmidt taking second base reps today during practice.
Yeah, but this is a team that can't have that happen at all.
No.
You have a $300 million payroll, and we're seeing guys that should have been shipped off. Peraza should have been shipped off in a trade a while ago. They waited forever on Andujar. They waited forever on a bunch of these guys, and then they wonder why they can't get anything back. And then they're hitting 200 with the 600 OPS with us, but then when it's AAA, they are hitting 300 and they're batting whatever they are. It's crazy to me because for me, I'm a guy that wants to just ship it because Judge isn't getting younger. Obviously with Garrett Cole, he's hurt, but he's upper in age. I'm waiting until Brian Cashman just puts all the chips forward and goes for it, but I don't think he's ever gonna do that. And he's not an aggressive owner like the Dodgers or aggressive GM like the Dodgers or the Padres who have shipped off their guys. He's just not the type of guy to do that. But that's how you win, is you take risk. I mean, you look at the LA Rams a few years ago, all that stuff they gave up. Look at their team now. Now they're getting Devontae Adams, Aaron Donald's gone. Now they got Jared Verse, who's outstanding. The Florida Panthers, I mean, do you think they have anything left? Tampa doesn't have anything left, but look at their team. You have to take risk in this game. If you want to be successful, and the Yankees are at a point like Aaron Judge, the season he's having. Say what you want about the postseason, whatever you want. I don't care about that right now. I'm looking at Aaron Judge right now. He's batting 380 plus right now. At a point, he was batting 400 after May. And obviously that has dipped, but that's expected because no player is going to bat 462 games. So, I mean, I would like DeGrom, maybe an Nathan Eovaldi, there's got to be someone that the Yankees can get. Because, I mean, if they stay silent, oh boy, a lot of Yankee fans, including me, are not going to be very happy.
I mean, I agree. I think they got to be ready. They got to be ready to deal it. And I honestly look, do I think that Spencer Jones can be a good player in this league? I do. But do I think that 24, 25-year-old Spencer Jones currently in the system is an unmovable prospect? No. Because 24, 25-year-old Spencer Jones might hit 35 home runs for this team in 3 to 4 years. And in 3 to 4 years, Aaron Judge is going to be 38 years old, no longer playing up these type of seasons. And great job, Spencer Jones. You had 35 home runs for a team that is hoping to make playoffs. I agree. I think the only untouchable prospect right now, he's not playing fantastic in the minors, but he's young and it's a position of need. George Lombard Jr., I would like to keep. He's 19 years old, third base, which we never have a consistent third baseman. That is really my only untouchable prospect right now. I think you gotta be ready to deal almost anyone else, and you don't even have to deal these high-profile guys for some of these players. Like, I mean, his name has been thrown around. It'd be crazy if we brought him back, but for infield help, like IKF has been a name that's been thrown around. He's on a Pirates team that's struggling. He's playing good this year. He's actually playing good this year. His name has been out there. I mean, in a perfect world that Toronto does it, Bo Bichette's name is out there. Like these, like especially IKF. Like you don't have to give up a Spencer Jones for IKF. You might not even have to give up a Spencer Jones for Bo Bichette, but like you gotta be ready to move some of these guys, especially because your window is like we're at the point now. If you want to take the window from the 2017 season, right? Let's go from 2017. That's the Aaron Judge era of New York Yankees baseball. It starts in 2017. That first year. That window has lasted so long, but we are at the end of it. We have like Judge is 34 right now. We have at best what 3 more years, and
Yeah,
when
for me, the window is 2 to 3 years.
right, exactly. And so when is it going to be the year that we say enough is enough? What, that third year when Judge is actually having his worst season that he's had in the past 6 years? That's when we say, okay, now we're gonna just ship it. We never like for Soto, I guess we shipped it, but that was still like we didn't really ship it because we didn't have to because it was he might not re-sign with us. We're never making these moves that like the Padres made these moves and then they beat the Dodgers one year, but then they almost beat the Dodgers last year, and the Dodgers are shipping it for these players. Except Mookie Betts, they didn't have to ship it for some reason. I guess Alex. This is a complete side note, Vin. Vin, this is a complete side note, but I have to bring this up. I do. Do you know the Mookie Betts trade? Like I know it in my
Yes,
mind.
yes.
Mookie Betts, David Price, and cash money for Alex Verdugo, Connor Juan, and Jeter Downs. The Red Sox gave them money. They said, take a top 5 player in baseball and take more money. It's been 6 years. It still blows my mind. I had to bring it up. It really, it really blows my mind. Why did they give them money? You were giving them Mookie Betts. Whatever. Red Sox are stupid.
The real question is, why the hell did that trade go through?
Why did they do it?
If I was
He,
Rob, I almost said Roger Goodell. If I was Rob Manfred and I looked at this trade transaction, I would have called up Boston and be like, "Were you guys drinking last night? Do you know who you just dealt? You just traded Mookie Betts."
and they'd be like, Jeter Downs is supposed to be like pretty good though, and you'd be like, it's Mookie Betts. You won a World Series last year. What are you? It's so
Well,
far
it's
in the
probably for the
past.
better that it's probably for the better that the Red Sox blew it up because they would have probably just taken the AL East and ran it for years.
Right?
But
Thank God they get the most talented player that they had since prime David Ortiz and said we're good. We'll pass.
uh,
We don't need him.
it's like that. Oh my gosh, what's that? I'm blanking on his name, but it's like Ben Simmons or like LeBron. Ben Simmons is here. It's probably like that, but yeah. I mean, the Yankees. The thing is with Brian Cashman, his thought process as we wrap up the stream is that he probably thought the Juan Soto move was, moving it all in. Look at the guys that he traded away. Traded away Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, and Kyle Gashioka, and Michael King. Realistically, that wasn't much for the player that Juan Soto is.
No.
So
Especially
like
because he's a
Brian Cashman can do
$765 million
things.
player.
Even like at the time, even the Devin Williams trade. You trade Caleb Durbin, Nestor Cortez, and maybe another player, and that was it.
It might have been just that.
Yeah, it may have been honestly, it may have been just that.
Because again, Devin Williams has 1 year left on his contract, and they want to see how he would do.
True.
Just try to get something out of him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Yankees should call up the Rays for sure. I mean, there was a time last year that they were pushing pretty hard for Yandy Diaz, who is a good first baseman. So I mean, and it just ultimately didn't go through. And then Pete Fairbanks, one of their pitchers. So granted, an in-division trade is pretty hard to come by. Because nobody wants to trade with the Yankees and make them better. So they ship them to the Dodgers, and we let the Dodgers be good. Because I guarantee the Dodgers will make over 4+ moves at the deadline. If there was a line, if there was a line, a betting line, it's got to be like 5.5 at least. You see the first thing, oh, the Dodgers have acquired this. The Dodgers have acquired this. Like,
All
I
of the
wouldn't be
Dodgers
shocked if they went
starters.
out and got Sandy Alcantara and just made him good again, or like they honestly trade for Bo Bichette either. Like, all right, we just got Bo Bichette.
They already traded for Alexis Diaz, and if they make him good again, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, but that's an organization like they have the farm system. They don't give a damn about the farm system. They don't give a damn about money. In 2036, they're gonna have no dollars because it's all deferred, and they're gonna be paying all the guys later.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, but anyways, guys, you have anything else to say before we wrap it up?
No, I'm all good.
Alrighty. Anyways, guys, that's been the Inside the Blue podcast. Special guest Logan Colavita. Thanks for joining us, Logan. And as always, let's go Yanks, Giants, and Rangers, and Jets. Why not? I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.